Retirement was supposed to be quiet, peaceful, predictable. You know, early mornings with strong coffee, a lazy porch swing, a loyal dog snoring at my feet, and nothing louder than the wind whistling through the cottonwoods. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. I bought the ranch a decade ago, after a career that involved less paperwork and more solving problems creatively under pressure. Let's say I'd earned my quiet. 65 acres of prairie brush, one house, one barn, two gates, and not a single neighbor in shouting distance. Well, not until the HOA sprouted like mold on bread about a mile up the road. At first, they weren't a problem. Mostly retired couples obsessing over mailbox heights and garbage bin positions. You know, the type who believe that the natural enemy of order is individuality. I wasn't technically in the HOA. My property line conveniently dodged their jurisdiction. But I watched from afar, sipping my coffee, and praying that they'd stay busy policing lawn gnomes and driveway stains. And they did, until she arrived. Karen, of course that was her name, pulled in like a sandstorm in a shiny white SUV, the kind of monstrosity that costs more than my first 3 cars combined and sounds like a jet engine choking on its own privilege. She bought the house nearest to my fence, about half a mile down the private road that separates my land from their Stepford community, and wasted no time establishing dominance. You ever seen someone mark their territory with exhaust fumes? Her hobby, if you can call it that, was barreling down the dirt road at full speed just to see how much dust she could kick up. It was like watching a toddler with a Tonka truck and the impulse control of a raccoon in a sugar shop. She'd roar past my split-rail fence, windows up, AC cranked, sunglasses perched on her surgically sharpened nose, and just go. No wave, no nod, just a cloud of arrogance and perfume. But that wasn't the worst of it. No, the worst started with a gate. Now, I have 2 gates. One at the front, where visitors actually arrive like civilized folks. And then there's the back gate. Not much more than a reinforced wooden barrier between my ranch trail and a utility lane. It's not picturesque, it's not fancy, and it's certainly not public. But apparently, Karen disagreed. The first time I noticed it was slightly ajar. I chalked it up to the wind. Second time, it was hanging off one hinge like a drunk uncle at a barbecue. Third time, gone. Completely knocked off and tossed into the ditch like it had offended her HOA sensibilities. So I did what any sane, recently provoked retiree would do. I paid her a visit. She opened the door halfway, probably saw the cowboy hat, and assumed I was there to sell jerky. I kept my tone polite. Hi there. I'm Gigi. I live down the road. I noticed you've been using my back gate. Before I could finish, she made this face, you know the one. The EU, rural expression. Then she actually snorted. Oh, that thing. It was in my way. I assumed it was broken. I blinked. No ma'am, it's private property. She smiled like I was a child trying to explain gravity to a fish. Well, it's not a big deal. You'll fix it. You people are handy like that. And then, slam, closed the door. No apology. No understanding. Not even a sorry for mistaking your land for a community playground. Just a Karen in her natural habitat, entitled and entirely immune to reason. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Once. Then again, after the second accidental entry. By the third offense, I wasn't even surprised. What I was done. I stood on the porch that evening, arms crossed, watching the dust settle in the distance. My gate was mangled again, like roadkill after a high-speed HOA stampede. I let out a slow breath. Well, all right then. See, there are 2 kinds of problems, the kind that go away when ignored, and the kind that require older solutions. I didn't want to reach into my past, but when someone keeps poking the bear with a golden ladle, eventually, the bear stops napping. So I made a call. Jimmy, I said, when the line picked up. He chuckled. Damn, Gigi, haven't heard from you in ages. You hunting elk or dragons these days? I smirked. More like swatting an overgrown mosquito. He laughed harder. Trouble with the neighbors? Yeah. HOA. That made him whistle. Say no more. What do you need? Rubber arresting gear. The kind we used on carrier decks. Old, decommissioned. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just functional. There was a pause. You are retired, right? I gave a dry chuckle. Apparently not from pest control. Another pause. All right, I'll throw in a little something extra too. Might even be fun. A few days later, the package arrived, thick industrial rubber, rigged to absorb the momentum of a landing fighter jet. And tucked beside it, a few more surprises. Let's just say Jimmy still had a sense of humor. Now, did I consider simply installing cameras and pressing charges? Sure. But where's the flair in that? Karen didn't just need a citation. She needed a lesson. A personalized, creatively engineered, ego-flattening wake-up call. And I had just the plan for her. As the sun dipped low, I got to work. Setting the trap took me all afternoon. Motion sensors, pressure triggers, high-tension cable, and the cherry on top, a net rigged to drop from between two cottonwoods like a spider welcoming a very noisy fly. When it was all set up, I stood back, wiped the sweat from my brow, and admired my work. "Oh, Karen," I muttered with a grin. "You have no idea what's coming. I almost feel sorry for you. Almost." I locked up the barn, poured myself a whiskey, and settled into the porch chair. Now all I had to do was wait. You ever notice how some people just know the exact moment to make themselves obnoxious? Like they've got some kind of sixth sense for ruining a perfectly good day. It was the very next morning. I hadn't even finished my second cup of coffee when I heard it. That low, throaty growl of an overcompensating SUV engine echoing through the canyon. I leaned back in the porch chair, cup in hand, and squinted at the trail. Sure enough, a cloud of dust rose like a signal flare. There she was, Karen, barreling down the trail with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball wearing pearls. I grinned. "Well, Karen," I muttered, "do what you do best. Don't check for signs, don't think about consequences, just full speed ahead." And oh, did she oblige. She didn't slow down for the gate. Not even a tap on the brakes. Straight through, exactly like before, right into the same spot between those two big cottonwoods where my trap had been patiently waiting for its guest of honor. There was a muted thump, the kind that tells you something expensive just got confused, followed by a shriek of tires and a surprised honk. The arresting cables had caught her front axle and jerked her SUV to a sudden, glorious halt. Then came the main event. A click from the motion sensor. A whir from the tree canopy. And then, whoosh. The net dropped like divine punishment. 1 second she was trying to reverse. The next, she was tangled in military-grade mesh like a raccoon in a chicken coop. Only louder. From inside the vehicle, I could hear muffled shrieking. Some words, some screeches, and something that sounded suspiciously like her screaming, "I know people." "Oh, I'm sure you do," I said to no one in particular, sipping my coffee as I pulled out my phone. I hit record. Zoomed in. There she was, Karen, in her beige SUV, trapped in a net between two trees, arms flailing against her window like an angry mime at an HOA mixer. "Come on, Karen," I chuckled. "Let's smile for the story." She screamed louder. I called the sheriff. "Morning, Tom." He groaned. "What did you do this time?" "You're not gonna believe it." "Oh, it's you." "Then yeah, I will. Let me guess. HOA trespass again." "More like a high-speed, unauthorized entry." "You got cameras?" "Of course. I'll be right over." I strolled over to the scene of the crime. Karen was now alternating between yelling and honking, possibly trying to communicate in Morse code. I approached slowly, deliberately, with the calm of a man who knows he's legally bulletproof and morally fortified by sweet, sweet justice. Her window rolled down just enough for her to yell, You psycho redneck lunatic. You're going to pay for this. You damaged my car." I put a hand on my hip. "Karen, if anyone's an expert in property damage, it's you. Let's talk about gates, shall we?" "This is entrapment," she shrieked. "Technically," I said, pulling up the camera footage on my phone, "this is trespassing. Again, with intent and speed. And you're lucky those rubber bands are made to stop fighter jets, or you'd be parked in the neighbor's sheep field by now." Karen's face turned a shade of red usually reserved for warning labels. She started slapping her dashboard like it had betrayed her. Then the sheriff's truck pulled up. Tom stepped out, took one look at the scene, and nearly dropped his coffee. "What in the holy hell?" he muttered. He walked over to me, scratching his head. "Mr. Turner, What? What is this setup? I gave him the calmest half-smile I could manage. Well, let's just say before I retired, I didn't spend much time filing translation paperwork. My background leaned a little more tactical. Tom blinked, then instinctively saluted. My respect, sir. I returned the salute, just a touch. Thank you. Now if you'd be so kind, the trespasser is all yours. I'll send you the camera footage, complete with timestamps. He nodded and walked to the SUV, where Karen was now bouncing between furious denial and barely contained panic. The sheriff started lifting the net. Karen immediately tried to exit the car, waving her arms like a malfunctioning traffic cone. You damaged my vehicle. I'll sue. I will have you arrested. This is illegal. Tom remained stone-faced. Ma'am, you're on private property, past a closed and marked gate. This isn't your land. It never was. But you've done this before. There's footage. We've warned you. And now you've tripped an engineered barrier while speeding through someone else's property. Honestly, you're lucky all you caught was a net. Karen's eyes darted around, looking for an escape route like a possum cornered in a luxury dealership. I leaned against a fence post, arms crossed. Don't worry, Karen. The net's not permanent. But the paperwork? Oh, that's going to stick. She whipped around to me. You'll regret this. I'll regret not doing it sooner, I said, cool as iced tea. And don't worry about the net. It's government surplus. Very gentle. My truck's been through worse. Yours'll be just fine. Karen puffed up like a microwave marshmallow. You're going to jail. Tom finally pulled the last strand of net off her mirror and sighed. Ma'am, I'd advise you to stop talking. You're only making things worse. Of course, she didn't. She doubled down. Because, of course, she did. If there's one thing I've learned from years of creative problem solving, it's that people like Karen don't respond to logic, reason, or fences. But consequences? Consequences tend to cut through entitlement like a hot knife through HOA bylaws. Karen was still flailing as Tom pulled her out from under the net like a grumpy magician yanking a rabbit from a trap. I'm pressing charges, she screeched. For what? I asked, arms crossed. Defending my private property? You entered without permission. Again, that gate didn't open itself. You set a trap. Tom raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, it's not a trap if there's a posted sign, a gate, and a lock. It's a security measure. One you voluntarily drove into at full throttle, by the looks of it. I didn't see the sign. Oh, you didn't see the big metal gate either? I added. Or the tire marks leading to your car's front bumper. I can email you a high-res copy if you want a keepsake. Her eyes practically bulged out of her skull. She was teetering on the edge of full Karen Super Saiyan mode, and it was a thing of beauty. Tom didn't flinch. He pulled out his notepad, jotted a few things down, and gave her the professional sigh of a man who's seen this exact tantrum play out over parking spaces and community pool rules. I'm placing you under arrest for trespassing and reckless endangerment, he said calmly. We'll let the DA decide if there's anything else to add. You can't do this. I live here. Exactly, Tom replied. There. Not here. As he cuffed her and read her rights, she howled like I'd just sold her SUV to a rodeo clown. I just stood there, casually sipping my lukewarm coffee and recording the entire ordeal on my phone. I figured she'd try to twist the story later, so I made sure to get good angles, for historical accuracy. You're going to regret this, she shouted as Tom guided her toward the cruiser. I'll ruin you. I gave her a smile. Already tried, remember? You tore down my gate, ignored me, trespassed multiple times, and then acted shocked when someone with actual life experience gave you a tactical timeout. You're not the hero here, Karen. I am the victim, she snapped. Tom opened the cruiser door. Not today, you're not. And with that, the door closed behind her. Now, some people might have taken that as a victory and left it there. But I'm not some people. Karen didn't just break my gate. She broke the social contract of don't mess with people who live quietly and mind their own damn business. So I filed a claim, sent every time-stamped video to the sheriff's office and my lawyer, a man who lives for moments like this and wears suspenders unironically. He watched the footage and laughed so hard he had to turn off his oxygen machine. Within the week, Karen was served with court papers. trespassing, vandalism, reckless driving, property damage, harassment. Apparently, I didn't see the gate doesn't hold up too well in court, especially when you drive through it 3 times like a demolition derby contestant with a vendetta. The HOA tried to pretend it wasn't their problem. Oh no, Karen was a free agent, they said, acting on her own. Sure, January. That didn't stop me from forwarding them copies of everything, plus a bill for gate repairs, security system upgrades, and ranch tranquility restoration fees. Karen? She lawyered up, naturally. Tried to paint me as some militia nut with booby traps and a vendetta against her love of nature driving. She actually called it that. Nature driving. Unfortunately for her, the video showed a whole lot of trespassing and not much nature appreciation. And the cherry on top? My lawyer got the footage played on local news. Headline: Retired veteran sets up clever trap for HOA trespasser. The comments section was brutal. She deserved every inch of that net. Don't poke the cowboy unless you're ready to get lassoed. Karen meets karma in high def. By the end of the week, Karen couldn't show her face at the community dog park without someone humming the Mission Impossible theme. She even tried to spin it on her HOA Facebook group, claiming she was lured and targeted by a local extremist. She conveniently left out the part where she tore through a private gate like a tank on autopilot. Didn't matter. The damage was done to her car, her reputation, and most importantly, her ego. I received a court-ordered settlement by the end of the month. She had to pay for all damages, cover my legal fees, and, get this, attend a property law workshop. Honestly, I would have paid good money to sit in on that. The HOA issued some half-hearted apology and promised reforms. I promised nothing in return, just stood quietly behind my repaired gate and waved every time Karen's SUV crept past on her way to what I assumed was court, therapy, or another failed PR campaign. But it wasn't over. Not quite yet. Karen still thought she could recover. Still thought she could outlast the scandal. She had no idea what was coming next. If Karen had any self-awareness, she'd have packed up her SUV, downshifted her ego, and vanished quietly into the sunset like a reasonable person with an ounce of dignity. But she didn't. Instead, she launched a campaign. Literally. A full-blown, public relations, suburban redemption arc flyers, HOA group posts, even a pastel-toned community newsletter that somehow showed up in every mailbox within 5 miles, including mine, despite me being outside their jurisdiction. Karen's truth. One woman's fight for fairness in rural spaces. I nearly choked on my jerky. The flyer had a full-page photo of her, standing in front of a generic nature backdrop, clearly photoshopped. Arms crossed like a Walmart brand superhero, next to bold captions like, "What they didn't tell you. A gate too far. Misunderstood? Or maligned?" Oh, she went full propaganda. Claimed she was the victim of a coordinated campaign of intimidation, and that the trap I built was a threat to public safety. Said the sheriff was manipulated, the court was biased, and that I, a retired veteran with a ranch and a porch, was actually part of a shadowy movement trying to bully newcomers out of their right to explore open land. Explore. Open. Land. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Karen, bless her delusional heart, even tried to get local press to come out and interview her side. But small-town journalists are many things: slow, easily distracted, always late to the chili cook-off, but they're not dumb. Especially not after watching video footage of her speeding through a gate like she was late to a wine tasting. One reporter reached out to me, asking if I wanted to respond to Karen's claims of injustice. I gave him a short statement. No one forced Karen to treat my ranch like a drive-thru. She put herself in that net. I just made it polite. That quote made the next week's front page, next to a photo of Karen trying to hand out flyers at the community potluck. No one took one. Someone offered her potato salad instead. She declined. The HOA, now fully in PR damage control mode, scheduled a special town hall meeting to let Karen clear the air. I wasn't planning to go. I was perfectly happy enjoying my peace from the comfort of my porch swing. But then I got a text from Sheriff Tom. "You're going to want to be there. Bring popcorn." So I showed up. Flannel shirt, clean boots, front row. The meeting was held in the HOA clubhouse, beige walls, matching beige chairs, and the oppressive scent of overbrewed coffee and collective self-importance. Karen stood at the podium like she was announcing her candidacy for Martyr of the Year. Her PowerPoint presentation, yes, she made a PowerPoint, was titled Healing After Harassment. Slide 1. A blurry image of my gate, which she called an unmarked barrier designed to confuse. Slide 2. Her SUV wrapped in the net, labeled unlawful entrapment. Slide 3. A pie chart. For what? I have no idea. It had no labels, just slices. The room was dead silent. A few people coughed. One guy near the back muttered, "Is this real life?" Then Karen made the mistake of opening up for questions. The first woman raised her hand. "Karen, why did you keep going through the gate even after being told not to?" Karen stiffened. "I was misled. I was told the road was communal." "By who?" "Myself." Next question. "Why did you tear down the gate?" Karen snapped. "It was in my way." Someone laughed. She glared. Then a quiet, older gentleman, Mr. Hughes, I think, raised his hand. "I watched the news clip. You said GG trapped you in a military-grade setup. But isn't he retired?" Karen froze. "Yes, but he still has connections." And she paused, like the answer might be on the ceiling. "And that's suspicious," she said finally. Someone snorted. Not subtly. By the end of the meeting, even the HOA president, a usually stiff man who once fined someone for wind chimes, was visibly pinching the bridge of his nose. I left just as the murmurs turned into full-on grumbling. Outside, under the porch lights, a few residents stopped me. "That net drop was brilliant," one of them said. "Did you rig it yourself?" Another whispered, like I was a magician. I smiled. "Let's just say I didn't get those parts from Home Depot." Karen lasted exactly 4 more days. Apparently, the social freeze-out was more than she could handle. Her own HOA turned on her, quietly but firmly. People refused to attend her block parties. No one returned her RSVPs. Her newsletter mysteriously stopped appearing in mailboxes. And then, like a plague of locusts had taken back their queen, she vanished. Just packed up and left. No announcement. No apology. Just tire tracks and one very for sale sign. Rumor has it she moved to Arizona. Something about finding a community that appreciates her free spirit. I hope they have nets. The day after Karen left, I found one last flyer tucked into the weeds by my mailbox. Sun-bleached, wrinkled, and almost poetic in its defeat. Across the front, the bold headline read, "There will be no silence." Well, turns out there would be. A whole lot of it. The HOA didn't say much. In fact, they collectively decided to pretend Karen never existed, like an unwanted software update that everyone just agreed to skip. The house sold a few months later. Young couple, quiet, outdoorsy, not a shred of menace or manic entitlement between them. They even knocked on my door with a pie. "Hi, we heard you were the neighbor who caught that woman in a net." I grinned. "Allegedly." They laughed. We've been on good terms ever since. As for the gate, it's still there. Sturdier now. Reinforced with a proper steel core, motion sensors hooked to a redundant power supply, and warning signs in 4 languages. Not because I'm paranoid. Because I've learned. People like Karen don't read signs. They read intentions, and they only respect the kind that hit their pride. That old gatepost now has a plaque on it. Small. Discreet. Brass. It reads, "To all who enter uninvited, may you be as lucky as Karen." I sit on my porch most evenings, watching the sun crawl across the horizon, casting gold on the cottonwoods. The ranch is quiet again, the kind of quiet I paid for with both cash and confrontation. Sometimes I think back to those days. The look on her face as that net dropped. The indignant screams. The wild hand flailing through the tinted glass like a mall Santa caught in a vending machine. It's not pride I feel, not exactly. It's satisfaction. Because there's a special kind of peace that comes from outmaneuvering someone who thought they could push you around and walk away untouched. The sheriff still stops by sometimes. Brings coffee and jokes. "You know," he said once, leaning on his cruiser, "we still talk about that setup you pulled. The boys at dispatch call it the catch of the year." I just smiled. She caught herself. I just provided the lesson plan. He laughed. Whatever you say, Turner. Still, if I ever get a real pest problem, I'm calling you before animal control. Not long after, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a little toy SUV tangled in netting and a note in all caps. Hope you still have a sense of humor. Jimmy. I laughed for a solid 5 minutes. Put it on the shelf in the barn next to my retired gear. Funny how life works. You try to leave the world of tactical solutions behind, and then the HOA sends you a problem wrapped in acrylic nails and superiority complex. Karen may have been loud, but she wasn't the first to think she was above the rules, and I doubt she'll be the last. So now, whenever I hear the crunch of tires on gravel and the hint of dust in the air, I glance toward the tree line with a slow smile. Because if someone ever decides to try again, well, I still have the plans, the rubber bands, and just enough imagination to make it interesting. Some folks say the best revenge is living well. I say, why not both? The sunset's good out here. And the traps? Even better. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.